Thank you again to War Thunder for sponsoring this video, more about that shortly. Welcome back to part 2 of my most taxing Payday 2 challenge ever, the full achievement run. You should absolutely watch the first part if you want a proper refresh of the concept, but basically our goal is to unlock every possible Payday 2 achievement whilst following the storyline presented by career mode. The run's rules are quite similar to challenges I've attempted in the past, with Heist difficulty scaling up to Death Wish now we're past level 80. The only mod I'll be using for most of the run is Vanilla HUD Plus, although you might need to call me out on this rule later on, and obviously everything has to be completed within the standard mission flow. In other words, once a heist is done, it's done for good, and any achievements that were theoretically possible will be counted as missed and knocked off my final tally. Restarting unfinished heists is of course fair game though. For anyone who missed the first episode, we eked our way to 300 completions, finishing up Hoxton Breakout in the storyline, and suffering plenty along the way. So much so, I decided this video needed to be split into 2 parts. Unsurprisingly, guessing game was painstaking, and I spent a couple more hours than I would have liked to cooking meth on rats. The second half of Payday 2's career mode is a completely different level of challenge though. We have to run through some of the most dreaded achievements in Payday history, like Caution Wet Floors, and probably the toughest solo speedrun achievement, Auction Cry. Not to mention, there are branching heist paths at this stage, meaning I'm going to have to double down and play through portions of never before seen challenge run heists. So, pray for me, sit back, relax, and let's see just how many achievements you can earn whilst completing Payday 2. First up, I have to apologise, because the footage you're watching for the first few heists is actually re-recorded on my main account to avoid tampering with the run. The actual first clears of these are lost to the recording abyss after, ironically, Helldivers forced me to use desktop capture due to its recording problems, meaning all that shadow play picked up of these initial heists was game audio over a blank screen. Since I've already mentioned it, that's because I was working on this Helldivers 2 challenge run, which you're hopefully all excited for, as it's been a blast to create so far. The comedy of Helldivers managing to get one over on Payday, even in the creation of my own videos, is not lost on me though, but on the plus side, here it's just me who has to suffer, as I need to run back the clears for you to see at home. Fortunately, these weren't the toughest on the run, so it wasn't complete torture. Starting back at Hoxton Revenge for the second time, this first attempt was actually ruined by a very bouncy banister protecting this FBI agent from my shuriken at all costs. As I'm going after shuriken shenanigans on this one, which requires me to only pick up kills with shuriken, this was an immediate reset. The run back was at least mercifully smooth, as I'd switched over to a few points of Yakuza for a secondary stealthing deck. This meant I could first take down Hector with a shuriken to the gut, earning I'm an Avenger in doing so, before picking off a few of the guards to hit the 4-kill shuriken check. Just escaping this one in stealth earns silent but deadly, and we also pick up an easy equipment achievement by running with the AK-17 Tatonka and Rezokie melee for sneaky beaky like. Unfortunately, but this is a reenactment from my notes as I know better now, I decided to chop down the FBI boss with melee after he'd opened the door, which automatically fails the shuriken shenanigans check, forcing me to kick that achievement down the road. Not particularly far though, as the diamond is another opportunity to focus on these stealth-specific achievements. This was a particularly tough one though, as I was juggling a couple of diametrically opposed challenges simultaneously, in the form of culture vultures, requiring me to grab as much loot as possible, and smoke and mirrors, requiring a sub 10 minute clear. It's probably not worth lingering on it, as I no longer have the original recordings of these attempts, but let's just say it took over 20 resets before I had a run that even came close to managing both simultaneously, with it reaching a point to where I was physically shaking as I crossed over the pressure plate puzzle. In the reenactment you're watching now, I just focused on speedrunning for smoke and mirrors, which is honestly what I should have done during the actual run, but I was insistent on going for both whilst also limiting myself to only shuriken kills. I managed nothing out of the ordinary for 4 answered pages in under a minute, half by accident as I was just trying to speed through everything as quickly as possible. In the end, I refined my strategy to where I was securing loot during the downtime provided by the time lock objectives, but even then, back and forthing between objectives and loot handling was so risky due to how much heavily guard traffic distance needed to be covered. Finally, on what can only be described as a god run, I managed to secure 9 bags of loot via the window and head out with the painting by the front door to make it 10. But in what can only be described as a calamity, I fumbled the escape, making it out in 10 minutes and 4 seconds, whilst culture vultures didn't pop either, potentially because the final bag was still on my back as I entered the van. I did pick up Cat Burglar for the stealth clear, as well as actually managing shuriken's shenanigans this time around, but missing out on the other two was a kick in the teeth after all the time I spent resetting specifically for them. As I already mentioned, when I re-recorded this, I just focused down smoke and mirrors and actually managed a sub 8 minute clear, which is what I should have focused on during the proper run, not learning from my past achievement greed. It's definitely possible to complete both culture vultures and smoke and mirrors simultaneously, but it's a really tough challenge worthy of its own bloody video, so for now I'm going to take the L on this one for being greedy and move on to the Golden Grin. Despite their relative base difficulties, Golden Grin's achievement run variant isn't half as tough as the Diamond's is. It has one of the most generous speedrun achievements in High Roller, giving you a whopping 14 minutes to clear, and the only other objective I have outside of speed is to take out Elvis at some point, which is easily done if you save your ECMs for when the escape is available. On the run back, I managed this one in just 10 minutes 33 seconds, which was slightly faster than during the live heist, comfortably unlocking My Blind Eye in the Sky for the stealth completion, High Roller for the speed, and Hail to the King baby for taking out the Elvis impersonator. This was also the final dentist heist, so I unlocked his contract clear achievements too, up to Death Wish. After my suffering on the Diamond, I really didn't expect the bomb Dockyard to top it, but unfortunately it somehow managed to. Done in 60 seconds is the first nightmare I had to deal with, one of the most RNG dependent solo achievements in the entire run. It requires you to find and use both keycards to open up the Dockyard gates within 60 seconds of the heist starting. For reference, to save me a little time and heartache for the re-recording of this gameplay, I did it on normal, as lower difficulties allow more keycards to spawn, reducing the random elements slightly. But on the actual run, this was all Death Wish baby, so I need to get insanely lucky to manage it. After, I kid you not, around 50 resets, I finally rolled into the RNG I needed, somehow inserting the keycards through these windows and completing done in 60 seconds. After that one, the difficulty does drop off a fair bit, but I just kinda suck at this heist, so there were still plenty of resets I had to go through. Whilst this is just a re-recorded version, I'm in absolute shock that I somehow salvaged this situation, and the guards never spotted the bodies, allowing me to proceed onto the boat for the last couple of Dockyard achievements. Breaking Dead requires you to find the meth lab, which is mercifully a 100% chance these days, up from a measly 5% back at launch, and after finding it I just need to cook a couple of bags for old time's sake, using the ingredients found around the heist to unlock high times. Not that difficult, but apparently enough of an adventure to give me plenty of opportunity to cock up in stealth. In the end, everything came together and I completed the heist stealthily for the bonus of sneaking with the fishes. I owe you all an apology here though, as at the time I didn't think the Bomb Forest had any achievements I could complete solo without finishing the heist, so I just ignored it, which was a mistake as whilst annoying, Beaver Team is possible solo, as is Pump It Up, so those are 2 more achievements down the drain that are theoretically possible in a better optimised run. I promise I didn't just miss these because I didn't want to head to the dreaded headache-inducing forest. The final heist that required re-recording before I finally checked in on the files was Scarface Mansion. This is a perfect playground to pick up a few sniper-orientated challenges, as we found out during the TF2 sniper run, so I equipped the Lebensauger to grab 11 kills without reloading, for names are for friends, so I don't need one. One of the only achievements I can think of that was trivialized by the weapon in question receiving a buff, as initially the Lebensauger only had a 10-round mag. In the process, I also picked up Celsius or Fahrenheit for 10 consecutive kills without missing a shot, while switching to and from the 45-degree red dot sight, a fiddly but altogether not too challenging achievement. I also found and shot down the 2 flamingos on this heist for Look at These Pelicans Fall. By carrying the Deagle, I gave myself another shot at earning Don't Push It, an achievement that requires you to take down a charging cloaker, which was only made difficult by my Create High's own killing prowess. Speed was the name of the game after managing the Deagle action shot, as this is one of the few loud heists in the game with a speedrun achievement. The major difference making RNG component was the painting destruction spawn point, which caused a variance of around a minute depending on its location. The tricky element to this one is that it's tough to tell if you're going to make it in sub 15 minutes until right at the end, so this was a massive time waster for me, as after rushing to take down Souza for Say Hello to My Big Friend, I had a couple of runs where I was just seconds behind the pace on the escape. Eventually, RNG really fell in my favour though, with the perfect painting and escape spawn points to clear this one just in time. On the re-recording, I actually managed this in sub 14 minutes, which is pretty damn fast for loud. This is the perfect opportunity to remind you of War Thunder, the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, available now for free on PC and console. With over 2,500 vehicles to command ranging from tanks, planes, choppers and ships from the past century of international warfare, there's something for everyone to enjoy and immerse yourself in, with some of the finest audio-visual design in the industry. Every vehicle is intricately modelled down to its individual components, making for some of the most realistic and engaging combat scenarios you can imagine, whilst realism never gets in the way of enjoyment, this is a game mode suited for every style of play. You can express yourself even further via War Thunder's in-depth vehicle customization system, and needn't worry about performance as War Thunder is heavily optimized across its multiple platforms. So, join our worldwide community of over 70 million players in sprawling PvP battles today. You can play now for free on PC, PlayStation or Xbox by signing up from my link below. When you do, for a limited time only, you'll receive access to a massive bonus pack available for new and returning players who've not logged on in 6 months. Highlights include the exclusive Eagle of Valor vehicle decoration, 100,000 Silver Lions, and a 7-day premium account booster, so don't miss out. Finally though, we can head back to the run account as I fix the recording at this point. Crim Spree is next, which is a little bit difficult to legislate for. Obviously this gives us a chance to revisit old heists we've cleared, or even ones otherwise inaccessible for this run. But as not every achievement is obtainable during Crim Spree, I decided to not go crazy trying to over-optimize this portion of the run, instead heading into a transport heist just to grind up some melee achievements on a slightly easier difficulty. I grabbed a few points in Sociopath to make this go even smoother, first picking up a Tased of Your Own Medicine for killing a taser with the buzzer, and then Wooloo Buzzed, which I'm struggling to say with a straight face, for tasing a charging cloaker. With the Cable Guy outfit, I was able to farm up a massive portion of the 200 required kills for Buzz Bomb, only fleeing the heist once I'd earned all 666 shotgun kills whilst wearing the pumpkin mask for pump action. This moves us on to yet another split choice heist, the first I'm actually going to be dipping my toes into to min-max that achievement gain potential. It's still optimal to go for the counterfeit clear here as it's a classic heist, but there are a couple of lesser heist achievements I can seek out before committing to the completion. I stealthed up to the DJ section to unlock MF's Dev for perfect button pressing, before heading back down to the basement and going loud to steal back my $7 from Hoxton Breakout and earn even Steven. That's all we can do without moving past the heist, so I quit out to the main menu and turned my focus back to counterfeit. This is the first heist in the run that forces an extended stay, with Dr. Evil requiring me to print and secure at least $1 million of counterfeit money after completing all other objectives. Proper turn your brain off and listen to a podcast kind of content. In getting to that stage though, I earned Y by dropping this body bag onto the barbecue before resetting the heist after seeing I didn't roll into the C4 RNG. The second time around, the basement was rigged to blow, giving me the chance to complete cutting the red wire, and with how quickly I'd managed everything up until then, I was in a great position to earn basement dwellers, needing to keep the cops out of the printing room until the safe is cracked. A couple of sentries on the two entrances is enough insurance to keep things under control, as the actual best strategy for this one is to take control of the exterior poolside area, and just keep all the cop focus aimed there, securing the achievement after just under 10 minutes. This was only a quarter of the process done though, as now I had to fill the printer up with paper and ink to manually print our loot. This is a lot harder than I remembered solo, as even with sentries in the build and OP allies at my side, the cops are quick to shut down power to the basement and interrupt the process. It definitely didn't help that I was rocking the Hailstorm and focusing purely on volley shot kills for the duration of this one, as they're not overly efficient. After a half-hour tug-of-war running back and forth between the printer and the power supply, I'd finally printed enough bags of cash, securing the final one necessary for completion in the loot cage to earn Dr. Evil, setting me up for an easy escape straight after. First World Bank next, a perfect excuse to slap Bo Anderson around with a money bundle for the down payment achievement. Whilst it's the reality we all wanted, sadly I do have to reset as stealthing the first section of this heist is going to make certain later achievements much easier to manage. Specifically hidden hostages, as breaking stealth after already opening up the vault section of the heist makes it much easier to keep these guys off the cops' radar behind this wall. Again, moving civs in Payday 2 is shockingly clunky, so I was a bit nervous about this one, but it's also a great example of vanilla HUD plus being a massive help, as I can constantly track the tied up civs to make sure I still have 6 back there and don't need to rush out to the lobby and tie anyone else down. To be honest, they were virtually ignored throughout the heist, so I really overthought this one in the end. I was glad I'd thought ahead and built for pure DPS though, with the Kimbo strikes, making Federal Assurance a breeze as I'd shoot immediately through the health bars of all 4 of these green dozers down in the vault in about 20 seconds. One has to wonder what the hell these boys are doing all day in that vault. This probably counts as a mercy killing. Anyway, this was really the only achievement that would require a reset if I slipped up, so I was in great shape to just set up and clear from this point. Cloak of Fear forces me to move the loot bags by hand, avoiding the vent shortcut, but this isn't half as bad as it could be, as on Death Wish, you have to move the first 8 bags via the vent for the escape to even open up, so with Crew AI that means only 2 additional trips for the other 6. Once through the back wall of the bank and into the offices, we just have to drill open the Titan safe for AU ticket, which I've only just realised stands for Golden Ticket. After dropping all 14 bags in the vault, I unlock Cloak of Fear and Federal Assurance simultaneously, for what has to be one of the most satisfying multi-achievement heist clears so far. It's a shame I couldn't do Overdrill solo. Shame for you guys, I mean. I'm personally massively relieved I didn't have to stand around for 30 more minutes on top of everything else. As has been the case with a lot of heists on this run, ones that are often trivial in normal circumstances are absolutely monstrous when maxing out achievement gain. I don't think there's a better example of this than Murky Station. Normally, it's a simple 5-minute breeze of a stealth heist, but today, I have to juggle 6 potentially earnable achievements, which involves making some serious judgment calls. Basically, Crouched and Hidden Flying Dagger, Janitor, and No Witnesses all require kills to complete, meaning Pacifist can't be the optimal route, so the 2 achievements related to not killing anyone are off the table. The 3 that remain are joined by Ghost Run, requiring a 7-minute clear of the heist, meaning 4 is the most we can earn from a single completed run. Initially, I targeted Janitor, No Witnesses, and Crouched and Hidden Flying Dagger, not bothering with speed and instead wanting to grab all the kill achievements at once. Janitor was very doable, however trying to combine 8 crouched throwing weapon kills with needing to kill every guard on the map without using ECMs was far from ideal. I ran deep into this challenge a few times, trying to focus on the underground kills during stealth, and then making use of sentries to deal with the train yard once I entered the point of no return phase. With a total of around 26 seconds between killing my 5th guard and needing to escape the heist, this was a serious time trial. After running it close a few times, I decided to pivot. If I was only going to be chasing a max of 3 achievements on this one, I was actually better off going for Crouched and Hidden Flying Dagger, Janitor, and Ghost Run for the sub 7-minute clear, as at least this meant I could use ECMs to make those final throwing weapon kills more manageable before the escape. Getting all this done in less than 7 minutes was still an issue though, as hiding body bags in the dumpsters took up precious time. On a few separate occasions I managed that stipulation alongside the 8 kills I needed with throwing weapons, but was just a few seconds behind the pace of Ghost Run. Finally though, after a total of 13 failed attempts, I had the perfect objective spawn luck, with the escape being, by boat, far easier to reach from anywhere on the map than the van. Escape was available after just over 3 minutes, and I filled the final dumpster after 5.5. With the minute and a half I had left, I made sure to use the full duration of my ECMs to confirm I'd hit at least 8 crouched throwable kills, escaping the heist in 6 minutes 25 seconds, earning all 3 of the target achievements at once, much to my relief. Boiling point next is another of Jimmy's devious machinations, forcing me to really multitask here for a single perfect run. Equipped with a Russian hat and golden AK alongside the Jackal SMG, I was unable to go down at any point in time. To make matters worse, I also had to scan all 4 bodies in the lab without letting the power go off, all this whilst grinding 45 kills on specials with the Jackal for another kill achievement. Fortunately, I'm pretty close to full build at this point, so staying on my feet with hacker equipped isn't that challenging. What was more intense was watching the power box in the basement of the lab. After one swap managed to sneak through my AI Akron defences and open it up, I was on edge for the rest of the heist, running between the main lobby and the scanning room constantly. Fortunately, it seemed as though the game forgot to spawn any cops in that room, as Chains was left holding down the fort passively, whilst myself and the other 2 crewmates waged war by the power box. Even after completing the full scan uninterrupted and earning, remember, no Russian, we weren't out the woods yet, as a single down would have still forced a restart out of me. The snipers were the real danger on the escape, but I was able to pick a few of them off in the courtyard to grab UMP for me, UMP for you, for my 45th special Jackal kill. This gave me the room I needed to sneak out across the tundra, putting the remaining snipers in the ground before risking a sprint out in the open to the escape, clearing the heist completely on the first attempt, but feeling that intensity in the process. Unlocking the ground is too cold for going downless, as well as when in Russia, do as the Russians do, for rocking the hat and the AK. I kept hold of that AK for the next heist, a quick trip to Goat Simulator Town to deal with a few tricky Day 1 specific achievements. No far more miserable today for all you sadists out there, as making it to Day 2 would constitute making progress, which isn't allowed if I also want to take on Santa's workshop. Ba Bang Ah, another comedically named achievement, isn't so tough, as it just required a few tosses to get the goat fleeing technique down, picking up a kill before catching the flaccid little guy mid-air. Goat in 60 seconds was a lot more frustrating, as getting the 6 required goats into the van within a minute, solo, depended almost entirely on RNG, as even when perfectly set up with a full car, I still didn't have the speed required on either attempt 1 or 2. Once again, I assumed I was in it for the long haul, but in a rare turn for this half of the challenge, on run 3 I rolled into the perfect van spawn. I mean, so perfect, the thing actually phased through where I was keeping the car with all the goats, and all I had to do was throw the little buggers 30 meters into the cage to complete this one with about 20 seconds to spare. To celebrate, I hung around to grab my 6th and final Skulldozer kill with the gold AK, retiring my use of the weapon and finishing what I started back on Hoxton Breakout for Man with the Golden Gun. Santa's workshop next, and honestly, I might have preferred to run far more miserable than this absolute snorefest of a heist, as most of its achievements are stamina focused. Pumped Up and Jolly meant I could only bring shotguns into the heist as well, meaning I couldn't even grind for a kill-focused achievement in the background. At least, I managed to pick up my 200th buzzer kill for Buzz Bomb. Keeping the elves alive for 30 minutes after the first assault starts is easy these days, as I'm not even sure the cops go out of their way to kill them anymore, so Santa Slays Slackers was a passive completion, whilst Euro Bag Simulator requires 100 secured bags, which I managed across over an hour and 10 minutes of this heist. All that time, and basically nothing of note that happened. Unfortunately, despite avoiding using deployables like the plague, muscle memory convinced me it wouldn't matter if I purchased the assets as long as I didn't use them. It turns out I was wrong, and just dropping them on this heist does lock you out of Only Santa Brings Gifts, an achievement I functionally completed, but still managed to fail in the game's eyes. Don't make this mistake at home. Once again, swing dancing for 50 melee kills in a heist didn't pop, but I'm just going to consider this one cleared at this point as it's obviously a glitch with the mod preventing it from being counted. I also ding level 100 with all that bonus Coke XP, meaning I officially unlocked Most Wanted. For some reason, all the infamy and leveling achievements I was missing on this account popped on the 7th of March. This was probably related to me logging into my main account and the mod going haywire. Not the end of the world obviously, but I will have to do a little recalculation to account for these at the end of the challenge. Car Shop is a nice change of pace at this stage, as it's just a regular heist with only a speedrun achievement available. I initially attempted this without crew AI, which was just bad routing as this is actually necessary later, but after a few failed attempts, finally came to my senses and brought the squad back for that much needed bonus interaction speed. With the crew back, this really isn't that bad, you just have to be pretty bold in how you deal with the manager and make sure not to crash the car on the escape. Successfully unlocking Gone in 240 seconds, with about 5 still to spare. The biker heist has become my nemesis on this series over the years, but to be honest, its achievement selection really isn't that bad. Scavenger just requires you to find this massive bottle, which I sniffed out in under a minute. I've always considered this one of the easiest heists to earn car versus car on, as the SWAT van turret always spawns early in the exact same location, so I steadily worked my way through its health bar before kicking off any other objectives. This is because the hardest challenge of this heist, that actually requires some concentration, is let the man work, meaning you had to be vigilant around the mechanic and not let him get interrupted. This turned out to be no issue at all, with the crew AI doing a lot of the heavy lifting, speeding us through day 1 without any real incidents. Day 2 is the perfect playground for me to earn some key kill achievements on though, given how spawns get really crazy. It's easy to earn Not Invited for 10 kills in less than 10 seconds with the Piglet, as the cops love to group up, as well as Disco Inferno for setting 10 enemies on fire at once. Since I had the flamethrower with me, it was also easy to grab Stick a Fork in Me and Done for using the Motherforker to kill a flaming target, and finally Overgrill for setting a bulldozer on fire for 10 seconds. Honestly, I don't know how this one is tracked, because I definitely had this guy ablaze for even longer, but after a bit of trial and error it finally popped from setting the second minigun dozer at light. Switching back to my day 1 build, I took out the helicopter turret for Eye for an Eye, and then set about going after Full Throttle, needing to complete the day in under 2 minutes. Unfortunately, none of my builds were really set up for tearing through the biker boss, and half the time my crew AI got stuck in a train cart halfway down, and couldn't work out how to assist me, forcing a few frustrating resets. Cloakers also did their very best to waste my time on this one, preventing more than one on-pace escape attempt before I finally brute forced my way to victory in less than a minute and 40 seconds. An old nemesis I've truly conquered at this point is Panic Room, and nowadays a few of the trickier achievements on this heist have actually gotten a lot easier. For example, Quick Draw used to be a nightmare solo, but now, with the overwhelming power of gas grenades, it's fairly simple. Just drop or fire a nade in these locations and the gas will do the hard work, as it saves you from having to run upstairs and potentially activate more gangster spawn events. It's not guaranteed every time, but after a few short resets, I managed this one with minimal effort. I wasn't finished messing around with the gangsters just yet though, I still had to grind up Ding Dong Breaching Tool kills on them to unlock Hammer Time, requiring 25 in total, which isn't the easiest when this massive hammer doesn't even swing quickly enough to activate Sociopath. Across all the resets, I stumbled upon the giant toothbrush though, securing it to complete the Dentist Delight to tick another box. Unfortunately, when it came to recording the actual runs that aimed to complete the heist, once again I forgot to turn off desktop capture after a Helldive session, so what you're watching now is just a rerun. Essentially though, there are 2 main achievements we can unlock. Don't You Dare Miss for completing the heist with 200% accuracy, and Cardio Training for making it from the roof to the basement in under 20 seconds during the escape. These might sound impossible on paper, but in practice are actually very easy with Payday 2 in its current state of balance. For the accuracy challenge, I simply brought along the Basilisk grenade launcher again, and hit a few massive multi-kills early on with the gangsters and cops all loving to group up inside the apartment. After a few of these, my accuracy was in the region of 500%, meaning all I needed to do was not shoot again, which is easily done with my rock-solid sociopath setup, honing in on melee damage. But Kknowley, I hear you cry, you've tried this before with the no shooting run, don't you remember? You need to shoot the snipers for Bile to drop the C4. Well, that thought crossed my mind too, but we're not in 2021 anymore. The Acron for AI now exists, and with that powerhouse at their disposal, when they're not staring at the floor for whatever reason, they actually have the DPS to clear the roof with time to spare to take potshots at those pesky snipers, probably taking them out faster than even I could have. How the tables turn. This is the truest form of payback for the suffering on no shooting. Cardio training is also easily done. Once all the objectives are finished, which really doesn't take that long with the Acron AI preventing most cops from even leaping over the rooftops, all you need to do is position yourself on this side of the roof and take a leap of faith directly on top of the conveniently placed first aid kit you tactically dropped at the start of the heist, saving you from the fall damage and setting up for an easy and visually impressive escape route. Heading on to Brooklyn 1010 next, we're back with the live gameplay, picking up no scope for 10 consecutive platypus hipfire headshot kills. I had some problems with this one, as I was running greys, but as soon as I dropped that skill and it stopped disrupting my kill chain, the headshots came easy. Still using the platypus alongside the over 9000 saw to make me eligible for apartment sniper, I headed back into the heist with a focus on speed. This felt like an aim training test, as the only way to reach Sharon within 6 minutes solo is to land those damn shots on the gangsters to speed through the early phases of the heist. I got pretty close in attempt 1, but went down far too frequently to make it down the lift shaft in time, tidying up my gameplay on the second attempt and actually reaching him within 5 minutes and 40 seconds thanks to some solid sharp shooting with the platypus. Upon clearing this one, I also unlocked Apartment Sniper for doing so with those equipment limitations I mentioned earlier. Yacht Heist continues the tradition of stealth-focused heists having a speedrun achievement to go after. Thalassophobia has a sub 6 minute requirement, which basically made up my mind on whether I was going for passive fish, for not killing anyone, or blood in the water, for specifically killing all security on board, as answering those first 4 pages would slow things down massively. Attempt 1 was right on pace for a slick clear until I forgot my judge was currently packing high explosive rounds, breaking my cover pretty emphatically. A few attempts later, I rolled into some excellent loot spawn RNG, securing all 8 bundles of cash within 3.5 minutes and still holding onto 3 pages, meaning I could just intimidate the security down in the control room and answer their radios without having to worry about taking them down. This ended up being a fairly leisurely clear, with 30 seconds still left on the timer by the time I made it to the escape. Undercover is a bit of an anomaly within this run, as it's going to be the first to really put me out of my comfort zone, forcing me to complete it without crew AI, as the I Feel Like Robin Hood achievement is one of the few in the entire game that is automatically failed by bringing the crew along. At least I could rely on their support for some initial groundwork on this heist, first completing the Saviour for finding and placing all 10 planks on this heist, then for cheering me on whilst I peppered this minigun dozer with 10 arrows for the Hedgehog achievement. To be fair though, this was the perfect heist to not bring the crew along for, as I couldn't afford to go down anyway, as that would fail not even once, and I couldn't have them accidentally killing snipers like back during Big Bang. As it played out, all the practice with bows and arrows on the Robin Hood challenge might have actually been worth something, as I found my crit Plains Rider to be more than a match for most enemy units on Death Wish. I did get lucky the taxman's car fell into the stairwell, meaning no getting sniped on the roof, but I still had to put in a fairly big shift with the bow to keep him moving to the interrogation room. In the process, I secured recycling for picking up 100 arrows, keeping up my ammo economy whilst I defended the PC hack and power supply, which fortunately spawned right under my nose. This really wasn't that bad with reduced single player spawns, and I never felt in much danger of going down, especially with FAKs to support. Honestly, this ended up working out like a standard challenge for a heist, easily making it through on my first attempt and unlocking I Feel Like Robin Hood for only using the unmodded bow, keep clear of the windows for leaving all snipers alive, and not even once for doing all that without ever going down. Slaughterhouse up next actually has a few similar stipulations, although I decided to just bring along AI regardless, as I don't really fancy dragging all those bags of gold around solo. But How is the first of 2 annoying sit and wait achievements, which just requires you to leave the van dangling on the rooftops for 5 whole minutes before it falls in its own accord. Really nothing special to this one beyond not dying. During this time I managed to earn knockout for taking down a dozer with bloodthirst boosted boxing gloves, as well as denied for destroying my 30th flashbang of the run. With the safe drilled open, I can finally make the day of that one commenter who's been asking me to secure John Pork over here on just about every run I've ever done. That's it for heist-specific actions though. Now all I need to do is avoid shooting any of the snipers out in the courtyard, preparing my crew AI with ultra-short-range stakeouts to hopefully dissuade them from taking any pot shots. Now, I watched the sniper counter religiously throughout this heist, and outside of marshals we had to take down, I didn't see the number drop below 5 once. However, upon completing the heist, Pork Royale popped, but making a statement sadly didn't, suggesting that one of my crew AI did go rogue and went sniper hunting. It was a risk I was willing to take though, so I have to own this one, and sadly without witnessing the murder myself, I couldn't know it had happened until I at least tried to complete the heist, so no second chances. Beneath the Mountain had me back on the whole don't go down thing with Juggernauts. The problem being that this heist loves throwing nasty curveballs from sneak cloaker attacks to nasty turret placements, or even snipers spawning out of seemingly thin air on the escape. My initial focus though was to go after Snipe This, an achievement I'd missed out on earlier during Hoxton Breakout, which I had a second chance at by climbing up this truck and surprising this fixed spawn sniper with a spoon to the face. Resetting to save as much time as possible, I now need to chase down Commando Crew for opening all 4 loot vaults within 10 minutes of the heist starting. By equipping the Dolph Mass I'd recently obtained from the offshore Payday mechanic, alongside the AK-5, I was also able to farm up the 100 required kills for Wanted. Commando Crew was a lot less time pressured than I remembered it being if you optimised the first few objectives of the heist, so that was also completed with a minute and a half still on the clock. Unfortunately, the speedrun achievement had really set me to all gas no brakes mode, meaning I got myself taken down by a pair of dozers who caught me without my ECM, forcing a restart if I wanted to keep chasing the no down attempt. The fact that cloaker takedowns count against you is an absolute curse, as they put an abrupt end to a couple of my runs, blindsiding me at the escape whilst I foolishly hunted them down to make an attempt at Not Today, earned by shooting them mid-jump with a GL-40. I was so far through this attempt, I at least decided to grab all loot to confirm clean house without having to complete the heist, and then proceed to spend the next almost half hour trying to get my revenge on Cloaker Kind. This achievement is incredibly fiddly, but it doesn't count if the kill is mid-charge, it has to be mid-leap, which gives you an absolute minuscule window to fire in. That's if you can find a way to spawn the sods over and over again, and locate a bit of map geometry that encourages them to jump at you. Realising the endless assault after refueling the chopper might create an opening, I set up in this small locker room, trying desperately to hide my OP crewmates out of the way so they didn't steal many kills. I found that cloakers love to jump if you bait the angle around the lockers, so after dozens of failed experiments, stolen kills, and boots to the head, I finally managed to time the shot properly and earn Not Today, one of the most frustrating achievements I've ever hunted in this run. To make matters worse, even then I wasn't free of the burden of Beneath the Mountain, still needing a clean, downless run. At least with every other challenge in the bag I could keep my distance from cloakers and just speed through the rest of this heist, not even needing to secure all loot this time, making it out in Lot's chopper after less than 13 minutes. Birth of Sky is a reset heavy heist as there are a few achievements that require individual focus. Up in the plane, 1-2-3 jump is a speedrun challenge requiring you to parachute out the open door in less than 1 minute 23 seconds. I juggled the clear of this one with no blood on the carpet for taking no health damage before releasing the money. I'd rather not be relying on the dodge bill for this one, but regardless, it seems to be somewhat bugged, as I'm positive I took health damage and it popped regardless. Finally, a return of that trademark good fortune that was so heavily present at the start of the run. Honestly, I have no idea why that worked the way it did, but I'm not going to complain about it. During the skydive, I can also pick up pinpoint landing by shooting through the diner before resetting the heist to go after expert landing. This one needs you to reset as you have to land on a rooftop and pick up 200 kills without leaving, which is obviously not possible after touching down in the diner. Landing on its roof instead this time, all was going fine until I genuinely slipped down the access ladder after only picking up about half the required kills. Remember, crew AI kills count just the same as your own for challenges such as this one. On the run back, I decided to land on slightly more solid ground, choosing the warehouse alongside Wolf, although Hux and Ethan didn't bother joining us, remaining up in the plane, meaning the 200 kills took about twice as long as they should have. They really were stuck up there, but I assumed they had the firepower with just Wolf at my side to complete the heist. I was right as we cruised through the pallet objectives and even had the time to ring hunt around the map, completing the Melon achievement for finding all 9 rings of power. All that remained was to escape in the sewers, which I took as an opportunity to farm up those last spoon kills to finally free me of that burden. My hubris and laziness here was absolutely maximally punished when a cloaker took Wolf down out of nowhere right at the same moment I was shot down by the SWAT surrounding me, grasping defeat from the jaws of victory. If this image of Ethan still flying high doesn't sum up his and Healer's stint in the Payday gang, I don't know what will. I digress though. At least on the next run, 2 out of 3 of my crew members managed to join me on the ground, assisting me in grabbing the final spoon kill at last, as we really breezed through the rest of the heist without much of an issue. I should note, I plan to go after the 50 Arbiter sniper kills here, but again, my lack of foresight in the routing I planned out has cost me, as I completely forgot to pick up the component cases back during Hector and the Elephant's jobs, meaning I straight up failed to unlock the Arbiter, voiding Let Them Fly by default. Heat Street has possibly the most simultaneously well and poorly conceived achievement in the game, in the form of Patience is Key. I think it's kinda hilarious that you're basically starving Matt out of oxygen for 30 minutes by just leaving him in the van instead of burning him out, but at the same time, the actual act of staying alive for those 30 minutes is a snorefest. At least I was able to farm up some kills whilst waiting. First 100 with the Crosskill pistol and Chuck mask equipped for public enemies, then back to the Hailstorm, almost finishing up the 500 total required of me whilst waiting for Matt to get fed up in there. I beat down a shield with the Police Baton for police brutality, and just about managed to weave in a cloaker kill the same way without getting kicked in the face to unlock the safe words police brutality and irony. It sounds eventful, but this was a boring 30 minutes. The key at this stage of the heist though is just to make sure you don't accidentally send a sieve to the Great Beyond, as if you do, you'll fail It's Nice to Be Nice and have to wait out Patience is Key again, as it only pops on a successful escape. Never before have I been so trigger disciplined, grabbing the final 2 animal posters on the home straight for Zookeeper and escaping the heist without another incident, unlocking everything as expected. Despite how boring and drawn out that just was, in all honesty, there's not a single heist in the game I was dreading on this run more than Green Bridge. I hold the opinion that platforming segments in any video game not specifically designed with platforming in mind shouldn't exist. Caution wet floors, which requires you to escort the prisoner to the scaffolding without touching the ground, might be one of the worst offenders of this in gaming. Diesel was not built with smooth jumping in mind. Sometimes Payday 2's movements feels like it's set on a permanent ice level, and others your momentum will be inexplicably stolen from you. Not to mention how difficult it can be to even tell if you've landed the jump or touched the floor, and sometimes the escortee can sway off the car path and go completely out of reach of your shout without climbing down, meaning you have to keep up and continuously clear a path ahead of him without being interrupted by cops. The one small mercy is that Crew AI is once again allowed to run freely around on the pavement throughout all of this. Anyway, that rant out of the way, this wasn't even my initial focus, instead going after I felt bad for him, which just involves dropping a medic bag beside this poor fella, as well as back to prison for freeing all the extra prisoners and then recapturing them with zip ties. This made it easier to turn my full attention towards good old wet floors. My first focus run looked like it could be the one already, until I made the most unnecessary jump over to this bollard hitting the deck unceremoniously. At least I took the opportunity, since I was so close to the scaffolding, to head up top and deal with the chopper turret to complete attacked helicopter, meaning only thoughts of caution wet floors will be rattling around in my grey matter from here on in. My plan was fairly simple. Only open the front 3 vans. If the prisoner rolled the 25% chance of spawning at the end of the bridge, I'd just reset, as the extra distance travelled would just cause more heartache than it was worth in the long run. I experienced a few whiffed jumps where my momentum died and I hit the deck early, probably caused by the weird geometry on the taxis and police cars, which was poorly thought out in my opinion. But after only 5 fully intentioned attempts at this, I actually made it all the way through, routing very optimally without too many scares. There was one arse-clenching leap right at the end where I came millimeters away from overshooting, but I hung on and just about had the firepower to push the prisoner inside without interruption. The celebratory spasm should tell you just how much of a relief this was. And with no more Green Bridge achievements on my plate, this one just played out almost as usual, actually having the damage to fight at the escape for once, instead of just running and praying. Alaskan deal now, another heist with a bunch of random map related achievements. There was room for 2, which just required me to snipe the 2 lovebirds hanging onto the ice sheet out in the ocean, and Headless Snowman, which is a fairly self-explanatory one, with 5 snowmen getting the chop all spawning in fixed locations. With those out the way, I could switch over to the flamethrower for an attempt at global warming, an incredibly simple achievement on paper that's actually very picky in practice. Meanwhile, I also had to keep the SWATs off the fuel tanker during the refueling process to successfully unlock the Fuel Must Flow, escaping straight after and, unsurprisingly, not unlocking global warming for whatever random reason the game wants to make up. I didn't even use my pocket ECM on this one after hearing that could impact it, but it was probably something about either my crew AI, jokers, or maybe sentries that broke this one. Although Unknown Knight's guide does suggest these should all be fair game. Let me know in the comments if you know what I did wrong. It's an annoying one to miss out on, but again, I couldn't have known I'd miss it until I at least tried the clear, so once again, no going back. Back to hybrid stealth for the classic diamond heist next. I had to sneak the first portion of this one to earn the hunt for the blue sapphires as they sink into the ground when the alarms go off. Again, these things have fixed locations, so it didn't take me long. From there, we have to go loud to activate the CFO objective, as he needs to die at Bane's hands to unlock the Dead Change achievement for stealing back the money bundle he apparently had in him. Alongside these two relatively simple achievements, you should all know what's coming next. The Blood Diamond, a pure RNG loot requirement with a 15% chance to spawn on Death Wish, I believe. Not ideal. Probability suggests it should take about 7 attempts for this to appear, with average luck, so you'll be gobsmacked to learn I actually beat those odds and found the Blood Diamond vault on only my 4th try. This was still a 40-minute farm though, as you have to make it through about 3/4 of the heist before even finding out if you got lucky, a miserable process when you're actively trying to farm this one. Either way, if you'd have asked me to shake on finding it on my 4th attempt before starting this run, I'd have probably bitten your hand off, so I can't really complain, fleeing the heist almost as soon as I found the rare loot. Reservoir Dogs next is a very different kind of achievement farm, but one that's quietly just as RNG dependent. Get off my property sucks, man. On day 2, which is actually day 1 in terms of the order in which you play it, you have to keep the cops out of the warehouse until Twitch arrives with the escape. Firstly, cops, especially dozers and cloakers, can just spawn right next to a potential entrance and brute force their way in, even with a full sentry strategy like what I'm running. The second problem is in how the objectives fall. If you end up having to sprint over to the further storage units, your fate will be taken completely out of your hands, as you'll be too far away to really defend the warehouse yourself. It's miserable, and no matter how you refine any strategy, you still can never be 100% certain. In fact, half the time, the only way I found out a cloaker had got his little toe through the door and voided the achievement was when the cops started spawning out in the back door, as that'll only start happening once it's already been breached. I suppose we have to be thankful for small mercies on that one. Anyway, I tried this solo without AI to reduce spawns, just focusing on my sentries, and on Death Wish I found that dozers would eventually just brute force their way in. So I went back to my powerful Akron AI, but whilst they had the firepower to keep those dozers away, they'd often be blindsided by a sneaky cloaker who'd breach their defences regardless. Even when that didn't happen, because the crew start following you around like lost puppies when you wander so much as 10 meters away, it's impossible to keep the doors and windows covered whilst also running and completing the objectives. I found this unbelievably frustrating for some reason. Not to mention, the cops still just phase through the wooden boards on this heist despite it being out for more than 6 years with plenty of opportunities to fix. But at the very least, I was able to accidentally pick up Pinky Swear for escorting Mr. Pink to the warehouse in under a minute of his car crash. Back on the main topic though, Get Off My Property feels completely outside of my control, but I really don't want to be defeated. I basically have 2 choices in this case. Drop the difficulty to normal, as then my sentries will probably have the firepower to hold out, or keep everything the same and try out a teensy little mod. Okay, you already know what I'm going to say. I installed Keepers, which I think is the lesser of the 2 evils, enabling me to command my AI to stay in position and remain there from anywhere on the map. Even with this utility, this remains a nightmarish achievement, as they could still easily be bypassed regardless of their better positioning, and no matter how well I played, there was still this element that remained out of my control. But in the end, their massive firepower and fixed positions gave me that tiny bit of map control I was lacking previously, finally unlocking the achievement after over an hour of miserable graft. Honestly, that one was for me. Doing this with Keepers did bend one of my rules, so I'm fine with you scrubbing it off my final total, but for me, this was a matter of pride, not principle. No way was I letting this one pass me by. Anyway, after uninstalling the mod, I got back to grinding all the other silly achievements on this heist, going after an unbelievable 92 special enemy kills with the Alabama Razor, which is easier said than done on Death Wish. Meanwhile, I also grabbed the last few Hailstorm kills I needed to finish off Field Test at last, which had been stretched out from all the way back in Counterfeit. I also converted my 300th Joker for Lieutenant Colonel, which I wasn't specifically seeking, but was always going to happen across the natural course of this run. As for those 92 close shave kills, shields were my bread and butter, as they could be successfully 2-hit killed, but I was happy to take anyone willing, from medics to dozers, so long as they didn't put me in the ground first. To make it worse, we couldn't progress the heist, as I needed to do the entire thing with only the Union for United We Heist, meaning I was left hacking away for the better part of the next 40 minutes, only progressing melee kills. Once it finally popped, I reset the heist once more, switching over to the Union, which easily romped through the first day with no more challenges to chase. Back at the Garnet Group branch though, I had a couple of achievements to complete revolving around the cashier, first hitting her with the money bundle to unlock Just Shut Up and Take My Money, before again resetting, hoping it might save the sanctity of the Union only stipulation. I was able to convert the cashier on the next run for Silver Tongue, before just making my way through the rest of the heist, securing all the diamonds and jewellery within the map in the process, unlocking Waste Not Want Not for stealing every available bag. Sadly, it seems that cash lap did cost me, as United We Heist didn't pop up after all that planning and restarting, which turned out to be a huge waste of time. Again, my assumption is that the money bundle damage was fixed beyond the restart, failing this one automatically, but effectively being an unavoidable 1-for-1 achievement trade for the final score. As punishment for my weakness earlier in modding the game, everything had suddenly become a lot less stable on Brooklyn Bank, actually crashing for the first time in the run. I hear this is just what Payday 2's like these days, which is a crying shame when Payday 3's in the state it currently is. Loading back in, I brought along a saw to assist in opening the ATMs and deposit boxes, grabbing the obsessive opening achievement for slicing open all 30, plus the 3 ATMs that spawn on this heist. I also brought along the Crisp Vertex to unlock Swiss Cheese, one of the final weapon-specific achievements I hadn't unlocked, just needing to grab 100 kills on a single heist. Brooklyn Bank keeps things nice and simple, as the final achievement just requires you to escape after securing all 12 bags of gold found in the vault alongside the medallion. I can taste victory at this stage as I head directly into the dreaded breaking fets. At least there are no speedrun achievements for this one. Instead, this heist has me doing all sorts of strange things, first happening across a stapler out in the wild and carrying it over to a desk to unlock Staple Relationship. More taxing than that is a moment of silence, an achievement that requires you to send Garrett to the bathroom without so much as being spotted, which can only be triggered by cycling through all other objectives to get him out of his office. This isn't that difficult when you bring trip mines to track the nearby security, especially when the office spawns towards the east side as it's much quieter over there. After sending Garrett packing in a hurry, it took just about all my remaining willpower to not just complete the heist and settle on the achievements I'd already unlocked. I can't stress enough how much of a marathon this run was. You see, really, we have to reset again to go after Stalker, which is unlocked by keeping Garrett marked from the second he leaves his office until you open his safe. Solo, this sounds like a nightmare, but with a few unknown night patented C4 placements, you can track him the entire time he's out of the office without needing to micromanage the spotting process. After a few false starts, I first marked him through the wall with 6th Sense before prank calling the guy and actually stealing the keycard inside the safe on my first attempt at the code. Honestly, this was a much easier set of achievements to clear than I expected, but I still managed to get myself caught on the way to the escape with the coffer, forcing in another couple of retries as I needed to clear this one without answering any pages, whilst also dressed like Santa to unlock Bloody Grinch. In the end, this was very manageable, without also having to worry about sending Garrett to the shitter the entire time. Henry's Rock is next, a heist I really planned for as I knew I'd already be dealing with a few RNG components and didn't want to have to run it over more times than necessary. You see, I had to press the red button every single attempt, which was a surefire drain on my resources, so if I didn't roll into either the archives or weapon lab, I basically reset immediately. Much to my surprise, I made it into the lab first on just the 3rd run back, planning this elaborate one-shot 5-7 setup to secure the boom headshot achievement for destroying the mannequins' heads using a pistol in under 3 seconds. I remember this really testing my shoddy aim back in the day, so I wanted to make sure, until my ego and intrusive thoughts got the better of me and tempted me to just go to town with my akimbo strikes. Yeah, honestly, that was very easy. Either my aims got better, or this was never that hard and I'm just misremembering it. If it's the former, you can look forward to seeing me on the CS Pro circuit shortly. This wasn't us home free yet though, as I had to reset one more time to roll into the archives, doing so immediately, which gave me access to the elaborate Egyptian chest, which can then be unlocked even further to earn hidden secrets, which is my favourite lore Easter egg in the entire game. On the escape, I just had to go to town with my high DPS pistols to destroy the sentry turrets instead of shutting them down manually, clearing this heist and also earning the red button achievement for dealing with the rooftop turrets earlier at the same time. More stealth speedruns now, with the 5-minute limit of Auction Cry on Shacklethorne Auction, but first I had to take this mechanic for a clunky walk halfway around the map to escort him through the metal detector and unlock the wrench melee weapon. Before resetting to kick off the Auction Cry attempts, I went and pressed F to pay respects to Lindenhurst Sr. Now, Auction Cry is pretty hard, although it's also quite fun and satisfying in my opinion. Solo though, you can just get shafted if you run into the power box locations too late, and it can be difficult to even tell you're off pace until you get into that final minute of the heist, as there's a surprisingly large amount of waiting around for timers to count down for a speedrun focused heist. The key is to intercept the auctioneer when you turn off the lights, and be willing to leave pager answering to when you have spare seconds whilst waiting out fixed countdowns. After just a handful of failures, normally about 30 seconds off the pace, I had one of those god runs you sometimes get when everything falls into place. I was actually sprinting out the front door with 20 seconds still on the clock, so all was perfect, until I forgot to just shoot the guards at the entrance, who slammed me down to the ground on the way out, just 13 meters from victory. Let me tell you, that one stung, but was completely my own fault. To make matters worse, this cost me about an hour of attempts, as I just couldn't string together any decent runs for the life of me after that setback. My conclusion is that for solo players, 5:30 would have been much more reasonable and probably less frustrating. Eventually though, if you bash your head into a wall for long enough, you'll usually find a way through, or just pass out, and fortunately, in this case, I found a way, making sure to properly dispatch of every guard on the way out as I sprinted to the exit with just 10 seconds left on the clock. Hell's Island is a bit of a reprieve at this point as there's not much we need to do on it that offers a lot of challenge. Just dealing damage with Nova's Shank unlocks the Cavity achievement, whilst picking up 13 kills over the course of the heist with it earns Prison Rules, bitch. It doesn't take all that long to locate the other prisoners in Murky Water custody alongside Bane, releasing them too for another way out, whilst "oh, that's how you do it" is essentially a Bulletstorm achievement for the Vulcan minigun, requiring you to fire the thing for 25 consecutive seconds, which is a little bit disorientating, but far from difficult. It was also surprisingly easy to clip the light on the lighthouse with this thing at my hip, setting me up for another simple 100% clear. Gotta give a shout out to Locke here too. He carried all of Payday 3's launch content with him on the way to the chopper. What a brave soul. With Bane probably left behind at Hell's Island, it's probably time for a flashback on No Mercy, and for once I actually have to stealth this one as far as I can. Solo, this can be a nightmare, but with Stockholm Syndrome and a loud weapon, it's actually quite possible to intimidate the entire front side of the hospital simply by shooting, with the noise keeping the panic button safe without the security in the actual ward hearing a thing. On my first attempt I was able to make it all the way to the ICU this way, and earn, or was it the blue one, for cutting the wire to the correct patient. My favourite part of this was the fact that the crew just decided that they were going to stay dressed as Santa Claus and moonwalk all across the ICU. Unfortunately, I forgot to bring my loud bill for this one, hence the strange attire, leaving me completely exposed as a Yakuza bill with zero survivability that was obviously not long for this world. Running it back, I'm honestly surprised by just how easy it was to replicate this strategy, although sometimes civs will just break for the panic button before you can properly set up. Regardless, a roughly 50% success rate in No Mercy stealth is a lot better than what I was expecting, which is a relief as we have to try and stealth every attempt, as keeping the cool is only earned upon heist completion, and we still have to tackle Nyctophobia, another tricky RNG achievement that had me at its mercy. Basically, I needed to make it to a randomly selected power box within 5 seconds of it switching off, which is an event that is guaranteed to occur but not at a specific time, leaving me on edge for most of the heist once the elevator was called in. Again, RNG wasn't too punishing here, as after one failure to make it in time and another couple of resets for a good stealth run, I managed to roll into the easiest to reach power box from the middle of this heist main intersection, unlocking the achievement as soon as I flipped it back on. Good with the bad, I did crash immediately after, but at least the pressure was off now, meaning I could just cruise my way through the stealth section once more and manage to hold out at the elevator to escape to this and every other run we've completed's final chapter, the White House. But first, once again I have to do a little bit of housekeeping around the final menu challenges. With the wealth I'd accumulated, I was able to modify the Car 4 to unlock Mall Ninja, as well as the AK rifle for Russian Operator. I also purchased all the required shotguns for Lock, Stock and 8 Smoking Barrels, equipped the Shimano Custom for a Vote for Change, and repurchased the Gauge Assault Pack weapons simultaneously to unlock so many choices. I was a little short on cash to buy all 72 weapon slots I needed to fit out for guns or light shoes, so sold my more expensive weapons I was finished with for a boatload of AMCARs, spending most of what remained of my accumulated fortune to fill those final slots. Unfortunately, as this is my final menu section of the run, I have to also write off any chances of completing Reindeer Games, I'm Not a Crook, Fool Me Once, Commando and 3,000 Miles to the Safe House, simply because I never found those masks in Offshore Payday. Stupidly, I've also missed out on Jump Jump Jump, the achievement that requires to jump at least once every 4 seconds throughout an entire heist. This was quite doable, but I always had so many side quests on every heist I attempted, there never seemed to be a good moment where I could just keep jumping constantly, especially with the guarantee of long interaction times playing solo. I should also mention at this point in time that I was not able to attempt the secret on this run. I decided I'd do all the necessary processes to at least activate the tablet and check out if I got lucky with the 20 required achievements, but I was actually missing quite a few the first time I played the piano, so no way was this happening, as much as I'm sure we all wanted it to. That disappointment behind us though, we now need to stealth clear the White House to get the most out of it. But first, completing No Mercy had also opened up a few final kill challenges. By repeatedly resetting the heist, I could use the last few dollars I had to my name to purchase the grenade bag asset a grand total of 60 more times to unlock Shared Love. I also needed to head into the heist briefly whilst wearing the 44th mask to drop medic bags for 61 total placements, unlocking affordable healthcare, as well as chucking a final few frags to push towards the completion of Fire in the Hole. These out the way, I turn my focus towards poison kills with my newly unlocked Scrubs outfit, smashing out 200 by resetting the first few minutes of the White House repeatedly for those free and easy Murky Run kills, eventually unlocking the Plague Doctor achievement as well as the Viper Grenade, which I could then use to pick up a few more kills on this heist for Snake Charmer. In all, this didn't take that long but was a little tedious, especially this late into such a long and taxing run. Anyway, no more strange hurdles to leap at this stage, all I have to do is successfully stealth the heist. I'll be honest, I'm a little out of practice when it comes to playing the game normally, wandering directly into this guy in front of a camera early into the first proper attempt, before slipping up all the way inside the P.O.C. on my second try. Third time lucky though, I managed to save all 4 of my pages to take over the P.O.C. with, still massively cocking up in the process before my pocket ECM saved the day with a little bit of tricky pager juggling. From this point, I was home free, opening up the vault undisturbed, grabbing the presidential sandwich of course to unlock a heist to remember upon escape, and waltzing my way straight out the front door and out of Washington, unlocking Big Brother for not destroying any cams, obviously as they were Titan variants, as well as President for a day for doing so, LARPing as Obama. With this, the run is officially complete. I don't have the offshore funds to become infamous sadly, but still stand by it being better spent on rolling potential achievement mass in the offshore Payday lottery. So that means this is our final total. 760 achievements tracked in-game, but that's including all the erroneously counted infamy achievements, as well as ones earned for difficulty completions that I didn't actually manage. From my own calculations, tracking all the achievements I earned across this playthrough, it comes to a grand total of 673, just over 50% of the game's massive 1,328 total, and 73 more than the figure I predicted I'd be able to manage after part 1. This has been an incredible but also massively taxing journey. I have to admit, I completely underestimated just how stressful and time consuming some of Payday 2's achievements are solo. I know some people ask how long these videos take to make, so I have been tracking at least from a gameplay perspective. I added another 30.5 hours in this half of the run, bringing us to a grand total of 48.16 hours. If I count menu time on top of that, it was definitely a 50-hour plus run. In any case, I'm just happy to have managed it, and I'm still issuing you guys the challenge to go a few steps further and maybe break the 700 milestone legitimately. In all, I missed about 7 achievements due to RNG that was out of my control, and about 20 I theoretically could have managed with different routing or cleaner gameplay, so it will be a serious push, but I do think it's possible. Let me know if you give it a go, as I'd be delighted to hear someone else has suffered through this madness alongside me. Oh, and before you go, please give Unknown Knight some love. He really is the king of Payday 2 achievement guides, and I genuinely don't think this video would have been possible without his prior body of work being so accessible on YouTube. Anyway, with that all said, take care, have a great day, and I'll see you all very soon. And don't forget to try out War Thunder, follow the link down in the description to play today and enjoy some top tier PvP action. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.